Hello, I'm Flango, and this is the last deck review from this tournament. Isn't that exciting? So, this one was made by Humberto985, and it was the last deck on the list, so it was another 13 to 17 deck, and it had Chimera as a king. So, already, I'm seeing this and I'm like, okay, well, the only reason to use Chimera is because A, you're a player who's just started the game, you haven't experimented with what kings you think are good, you've just got some sort of card salad with Chimera, or B, you're aggro. And Chimera is an excellent, excellent aggro. You can do a swamp aggro, and it's amazing. And I've already built it in this review series, so I'm not going to talk about it. Now let's see which one it is. Two Soul Collectors. Already, I'm pretty sure it's going to be the card salad. Flame Goddess Idol? Okay. Chimera is not a terrible Flame King. Soul Stealer. Two of those. Okay. Sunset Samurai. Okay, it's definitely going to be Scorched. Barrier. Two barriers. I don't know if I like that in this deck, but okay, okay. We've got a lot of really, really slow cards. And so I guess Barrier kind of fits the slow theme. Barrier is a really hard card to talk about because, like, it's okay at anti-aggro. It's really good in this tournament for anti-aggro because all the aggro is like different big creatures. But that's like I want to call that tempo more than anything else, but it's kind of aggro. Anyways, I don't know. We'll see if I have anything better to say here. Wings to Sludge 1. Lava Wave 2. Okay. Eruption 3. I would hope so. And Chimera 3. Okay, this is a weird but interesting deck. It's kind of looking like Bog Dweller aggro, but he used Chimera. And come to think of it, isn't that just really good? I guess not, because you can't use Wraithblade. But if you think about it, like... Oh, sorry. Gotta do the yawn once. Um, Chimera has less health, but does more damage. But with Barrier, you don't really care. I guess you don't get to heal yourself, so it's not really like Bog Dweller Duelist. Yeah, it's probably not. Anyways, let's start by cost and talk about this a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, we're a Flame deck. Our only way of getting mana is things dying, on Scorched preferably. We have a lot of things die and we get mana cards, but I don't know, like on Scorched preferably. So then we've got Eruption here to make the Scorch happen. And yeah, then we've got this card, which is like a control card. Can be a nice finisher in aggro. 30 damage to everything on a line. And then these cards are kind of like 1v1 me bro cards. Yeah. So it looks like if someone were to build like Bog Dweller aggro with like half control. And I'm really not surprised that this feels bad to play or doesn't perform because I mean it's a control deck whose control is Chimera, which doesn't do that very well. Like if you ran the same deck but ran I don't know, ran Infernos maybe, I don't know. Even that's kind of iffy. I think you'd need to run like Star Eater, ramp up to Star Eater Taurus Dragon like every other deck in the world. Or you could even ramp up to Desire's Guardian maybe. Or Eternal Gamester. I don't know how that works exactly. I'm still trying to figure out a good deck that I can showcase that's basically like an Eternal Gamester one turn kill. Where you can like play the Gamester and then play another card, and then because of that, maybe something happens and then you can play another card. I don't know. Or maybe you just have to protect the Gamester for one turn. Like you can Gamester and then Barrier, and then the next turn you can do something crazy. I'm still thinking about like how to effectively get to like basically infinite mana and use your Gamester in a good way. But yeah, we'll see. Um, Overall, what I'm trying to say is like, yeah, you could probably ramp up to like Star Eater, Taurus Dragon. Zera might not be bad, especially in a control. Like honestly, Zera King here is probably just better, unless you want to be like aggroing in some cases. You could even ramp up to Volcanoes. It's very hard to do anything, and then they would be infinite mana, and then you could use that infinite mana to power Desire's Guardians. Volcano Desire's Guardian top end. Doesn't even sound that bad. And you could just get rid of some of these cards like this. And then this, more or less. And Zera King. And all of a sudden you've got a much better deck. Zera can even give you mana before you start erupting everything. I don't even know that Sunset Samurai is all that good, but eh. Soul Stealer is definitely not good. Show me better mana cards. I mean, you've got. I'd just double down on Flame Goddess or something. You could even do like Flame Lord, but honestly, no. Sunset Samurai is just better, right, than Soul Stealer in your deck. So I would definitely at least just run more Sunset Samurais. I would consider running Exchange too. Because, like, what are you getting? Like 35, 75, plus 15 or 10 for every single one of these. Like, that's just too high. I don't know. It's hard to say if you have enough things to exchange. In which case, like, I would definitely think about running just like a Cerberus or something, probably. Yeah, you could even run Naked Lava Golem, but I like Cerberus. And I mean, if you run 3 Cerberus and just no Soul Collectors, that's honestly still a fine deck. And you can just drop Wings and add another Flame Goddess. All of a sudden, I'm happier with this deck already. So that's sort of how I'd tech that more into control. I didn't put too much thought into that, and I do not play that archetype. I don't know if it's best to ramp up into Taurus with Force, be that Star Eater or just like Psycho Fiend, or Cephalopod to avoid demons. And I know Cerberus 20 HP is decent. Um, yeah, I think that overall what I showed you is pretty good. So yeah, I think that's kind of my only thing is like it's just got a bunch of aggro parts in a deck that's trying to get a lot of mana. And yeah, I don't see like the all the aggro parts, like all of those cards, those like utility cards, barrier, wings, sludge, even lava wave sort of, but mostly barrier, wings, and sludge. They're aggro cards. Like they're cards that or well, maybe they're not aggro cards, but they're like duelist cards. They're cards that like nerf the enemy's one card, usually the king, or buff your one card, usually your king, to make your king versus their king more favorable. And then the rest, like, they're all there, like wings and sludge and barrier, they're there to make it a one versus one between your king and their king. Like, that's sort of like they're there, like, barrier makes it so that the opponent can't call in big cards to hit you, or they won't hit you with their king, right? It serves both purposes. Wings, I mean, it serves the purpose of making sure their king can't run away, and it serves the purpose of making sure that their extra card, wherever it is, can't get into the battle quickly, can't hit you. So, like, again, like, the two purposes of these cards are always to either let you beat their king in a one versus one, or to make sure that the fight with their king is a one versus one. Now, there's some other things with wings where you can, like, give something wings, like your king or something with high damage, which in your deck is just always your king. And then you can kill something with it because of wings. I don't have too much to, like, that's really, really usually fringe. And if it happens, then that's great. But that's not like, even then, I mean, you're still just, like, making it a one versus one. Like, you're gonna do that to kill the king or something, usually. Because you're destroying your movement if you do that. Um, Even Lava Wave to an extent, like, it's there to kill kings, it's there to kill other things and make it a one versus one. Lava Wave is a little bit different because it can give you board control and advantage, but usually, and I need to stress this, because this is something that I don't know that people understand, is that usually these utility cards are not used for board control. Because they don't do that. They don't kill things. They don't constantly get better over time. You use them once, and they're gone. So all that does is get rid of, like, negate what the opponent has done, or buff you temporarily. And anything that's temporary means that it needs to do something permanent, which is kill the enemy, right? Like, if your opponent is playing a card and you're killing it, unless you're getting, like, a better deal in terms of mana and you're both on the same mana economy, then that's very rarely a good trade, right? Like, you're just giving them the tempo right back. So you need to be doing something, be it, like, killing more things, or, like, maybe you're killing something important and then you can go kill their king, or you can go kill their mana cards, right? Killing their mana regen is okay. But, like, for the most part, barrier doesn't let you do that. Barrier lets you live a little bit. But you're only delaying your death unless it does something permanent for you, like make you draw more cards that help you win, or, like, protect you so that you can give lethal on the king next turn, right? And so as soon as you opt into using your utility, your barrier, your wings, your sludge, your lava wave, maybe not your lava wave, sorry, but your barrier, your wings, and your sludge, especially sludge. Sludge is an awesome example. As soon as you opt into using that card, then you have opted out of having board control, right? Because you could have played a minion. You could have played, I don't know, it depends on how much mana you have, right? But you could have played a card like Cerberus, which controls a lot of space and isn't, like, it can do damage every turn until it dies. And it's not going to die in one turn. So as soon as you play a card like Sludge, which is 31, so maybe I should compare it to Inferno. As soon as you play a card like Sludge instead of Inferno, then you are saying, no, I don't want this value over time that a minion offers. I want to end the game while you can't move or attack. Or I want to get you really low so I can end the game very soon. And, I mean, that's just not, in this deck specifically, that's not conducive to the whole Soul Stealer, Flame Goddess Idol, Sunset Samurai, Soul Collector archetype, right? That archetype doesn't want to be, like, sure, at some point, there's always a point where you can convert to a win. But usually, you're converting and especially with those cards, you're converting board control to a win. And Sludge can do that, but not like without any minions in the deck at all. So yeah, that's my long rant on like utility cards, and that's why I removed them from this deck. Is like realistically as control, if you need barrier, you're doing something wrong. I'm just gonna say that. Like I think people put too much importance on Great Monarch slash barrier, and they think, oh well, I need to be able to use barrier because then maybe they'll kill me, and then I can't, and then I don't want that. But like, when is barrier saving you? I don't know. It depends, obviously, but I think that, and I'm gonna talk about this in my like meta analysis, but I think that barrier is the most overused card of the patch or of the tournament. And I also think that like, Wings was equally overused. I don't like I used to love Wings. It's kind of worse now because of the kings that are run and blah blah blah. But I just feel like Wings is really really meh and overused. And like again, like Wings as a card, I guess it does give you board control in some ways, but because Force is so used, you're really just delaying the inevitable, and you're not getting much out of it. So I don't know, like unless you're again converting, and Sludge is another one where like people will run 3 Sludge, and that's good for consistency in certain decks like Bog Dweller. But I don't want to see 3 Sludge in your Zera deck unless like you need that card fast, right? Because frankly, again, in control, what you're doing is you're getting board control. You're playing 1 or 2 Sludge to finish the game at the end because it's very hard to catch an opponent. And then you're done. You've won the game. It's over. Right? And like that's the only use I can see for barrier and control. Cuz control is all about like you played a card, well, I'm going to get rid of the threat and I'm going to get value out of that so I can build up board control or something, right? And that's why control should love cards like Soul Stealer and Soul Collector because it can now trade 1 for 1 and get free mana and stuff. And so then it would build up to cards that don't trade 1 for 1, like Chimera is a fine example, honestly. But I don't necessarily even think Chimera is the best. I just think that Scorched is decent. I would build up to Inferno maybe even. And Inferno does 21 damage every time, and Chimera honestly only has 1 more attack. Has better movement. So, or Star Eater is another good one because it can do a lot of things. But my favorite card to talk about when I talk about control is obviously Bog Dweller because it heals and does decent damage and never dies ever. But anyways, that's not the point. The point is not what you ramp up to. There's so many bajillions of options. The point is that your job as control is to get value and counter enemy cards, right? And so I can see running a barrier if you think you can't survive a Sludge. Do I think that should be happening as control? It's complicated. I think that it's not like I think that it's not something you should have happen. No. So I think that if you're running Zera, 61 HP, or Bog Dweller, 60 plus however much you regen, which are like the 2 best control kings. Although I think it would be really cool to try Cosmos Dragon control, or Shenlong. I like Shenlong a lot in control too, actually. So if you're running one of these cards, even Star Eater can be control because of the boom boom. It's a lot like Shenlong and Cosmos. But if you're running a control deck with one of those kings, it it takes a lot for you to not live against the sludge because you're healing, you're on crystal, you're on something, you're on Oasis a lot of the time, you're on like you're on things that help. You've got board control in theory. Because of your good movement overall, your opponent is going to be spending a turn to get to you. So like you're not like right face to face and then like, oh shoot, he sludged me. And if you are face to face, it's because you have a big card that you're trying to play. And you're like, Red Reaper right on top of your face. So if you sludge me and kill my Red Reaper, you're still not hitting me twice. And I have 61, or you might have whittled me down to like 40 something, but still I have a large health pool. So yeah, I think that it's just super, like, it's super important. If you're finding that, like, oh no, aggro just sledges me and then I die, sure. Run a barrier, maybe two for consistency. But if you're finding that, like, holy cow, aggro just always sledges me and I die, I think it's time to look at your early game, not what you're doing after you get sledged. So I know that this turned out to be more of a rant on uh, how to play a control and how to like when or when not to use utility cards and sort of more like a how the game works rant. But honestly, that's the point of this series, right? We look at a deck and we learn. Because I don't want the creator of this deck to like look back and be like, "Oh shit, I made a bad deck." And like that's not the point. I don't want them to like feel bad or something about their deck because frankly, it's like not even that weird. It's just got two separate pieces from two separate archetypes and they don't marry very well. They don't play together very nicely and that's fine. Um but the fact that like this happened is how we learn about the game, right? And today we may have learned a very valuable lesson of like, wow, this is what actually happens when I play Soul Collector, Soul Stealer, Flame Goddess Idol. It allows me to trade one for one efficiently. Or this is what actually happens if I run Wings, Sludge, Barrier. It allows me to kill my opponent or finish them off once I have an advantage. And yeah, I think that like it's actually decks like these where you try to do something crazy like merge two archetypes where you learn the most. And I mean, we don't necessarily do that anymore as like players who play the game a lot, right? Like if you look, Sturm's deck just builds itself. Reinhardt's deck more or less builds itself. Like you have to choose what to go up to, and he chose to add 3 Castle Knights, which is just I love it. Um, Zenith just played aggro, and it just builds itself in a lot of ways, right? So I really like seeing people trying to build decks that are crazy and don't necessarily build themselves. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say. I think that this was probably one of my favorite decks to look at. So, yeah, thanks for watching.